we want to change how we're using our time, we basically have to break that habit of being ourselves, and that has to be intentional from within.
This week on Garry Talks, I'm joined by John Douglas, an elite mindset and strategic performance coach whose mission is making big impacts in life and business. John helps clients break through limiting beliefs, reclaim their time, and elevate both personal fulfillment and financial independence. He's here to show us how small shifts can lead to major breakthroughs to help us thrive in life without sacrificing everything.
What stories are we telling ourselves about work? We feel like if it's not hard work, it's not good work. I was reading books and consuming lots of content on YouTube, but nothing was changing. In fact, I probably got better at making things worse. I was in a relationship I should never have been in. I felt like it was a weakness if I gave up.
Yeah.
So I put in the work. I ended up at kind of my own rock bottom through that.
This is a GK Media podcast. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Garry Talks. Before we dive in, a massive thank you for tuning in. Last year, Garry Talks hit #1 in Apple Podcasts entrepreneurship category here in Ireland. And we even reached #3 in business. That's all thanks to you, our incredible listeners. This year, we'd love to go one step further and take that #1 business spot. So, if you can support the show in any way, we'd really appreciate it. Whether it's sharing this episode, leaving a review, or just telling a friend, every little bit helps. Each episode costs around €1,000 to produce, and we've now released over 100 shows, all in the hope that these conversations deliver something valuable for you to invest back into yourself. So, follow us on social media, drop us a message, and don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to support the show further. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy today's episode of Garry Talks.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
John Douglas, thanks so much for joining me on Garry Talks.
Gary, absolutely fantastic to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming all the way from Wicklow as well to meet me today.
No worries. It's always sunny down in Galway here, so I love coming down.
Well, I don't know about that. There's always traffic.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that. You sent me on a video. We were chatting a few times via email and phone and so on. And you sent me on a video about the coaching and consultations that you do, all based around your work mode mastery. And the structure that you have in place just blew my mind. Like everything, every sentence you were coming out with, I could relate to. And I think for anyone listening to this episode today, there's huge opportunity to gain huge learning from what John is going to talk about. And we're talking about leadership, but it doesn't even have to be, I think, a leader in business. You know, you could be involved in a local GA club, or you could be involved as a volunteer with a charity group or something like that. This is just leadership in a general role as well, where it's about knowing your vision and creating high impact. But you are obviously going to say it much better than me. So can you talk to me, even what you'd spoken about in that video before, about, you know, where leaders are getting it wrong in today's world?
Yeah, Gary, and I suppose I first of all, I want to, I suppose, say I never feel that we're doing anything wrong so much, but more so that we could always be doing things better.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's probably part of my philosophy, is that there's always a better way. I'm sure I drove. I'm a farmer's son, so I'm sure I drove my father mad growing up that there was always a better way. But yeah, in terms of working, and I like that you could actually apply these principles to anything really, because they are life principles, but they just so happen they're a big return on investment, I suppose, for a business owner, because there's so much at stake, but there's also so much opportunity that can be gained by that. And I suppose leadership maybe has been looked at from the outside in, maybe, if you want to put it that way, I think, for a long time. And there's a lot of people now looking at it maybe from the inside out. And that's the way I look at it as well. So leading from within, kind of that self-leadership, as you said, like if you're even creating a vision for your life, for your health, for your family, for your home, whatever it is, you can kind of use that style there. And it's really about, I suppose, I was brought up with a very, being from a farm, I was brought up with a fairly good work ethic. always shown how to work hard and work well, but maybe not always work on the right things. And I think that's where the distinction is. It's about working on the right things. Because leadership, you know, if we're thinking about you go into a business, you're as an employee, obviously you hope to go in there because it's part of your career and it's part of where you want to go to, but you're going in basically to swap your time for money. So you're going in for your 8 hours a day or whatever it is, and you get paid for that. But when it comes to leadership, if you're still working with that mindset, that's a big limitation on a business, because now every output that's linked to what you do is coming back to how much time you put in. And unfortunately, there's only so many hours in the day. And we're already busy.
And they, you know, in fairness, for most business leaders, we'll say, they have come into business as an employee. You know, what they probably know most of their life before they became a leader was being an employee. So very much an employee mindset, and this whole thing of keeping busy, working hard, and so on. Whereas to make that high impact, you need to pull back and focus less on, as you say yourself, what's creating low impact returns, what's actually giving you the biggest return. And that your vision is clear, and everyone on your team knows what your vision is as well and values that vision.
That we're all on the same page. Exactly.
It's massive.
So yeah, like you say, like you start a business and maybe you've come from an employee background. Maybe you're starting your third business, so maybe it's a little bit more, you know, you're getting the run of things. But a lot of entrepreneurs will be starting from that kind of mindset. And you kind of need that grind, that work ethic when you're starting a business, because you have to do everything. Like you have to do the marketing, the sales, the finances, the production, the fulfillment of whatever you're doing. Everything is done by you. But then as you start to grow a team around you, maybe there's 10 people around you, maybe there's 20 people around you now. If you're still in that same mindset, you actually become the bottleneck on the business, which is kind of counter to what, you know, you might think as leaders, like, well, maybe my team aren't performing the best, or maybe, you know, they're always coming back to me with the same questions. Why am I the only one that seems to take responsibility around here? These are kind of questions that go on in the minds of a lot of business owners that I work with. So it's about them shifting that maybe they could be working in a better way. So the work mode mastery is about getting into the right work mode, so you can actually have the highest impact as a leader. And so when you're getting back to that idea of like swapping your time for money, and there's only a limited amount of time, that's a finite game. But when you think about business, there's no ceiling really on what a business can ever achieve in terms of the revenue. There's no ceiling, only what the vision of the leader really is. So that vision to be realized, when you're looking at leadership is an infinite game, and it's about investing your energy and investing that energy and attention for having impact, as you said. Like, it's the impact that creates. So I see it very much as there's no finiteness to leadership, because business never ends. So if we get into that mode, we have to break free from our time being more valuable to actually our focus being most valuable.
100%. Can we talk about what low impact work is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've defined there's 3 work zones, basically: low, mid, and high impact. So the low impact stuff, hopefully we're not too familiar with it, but unfortunately,
I think a lot of us are familiar with certain elements of it.
So the low impact work for me is things like firefighting, doing admin work, you know, chasing invoices, checking things, anything that really that strains you. You kind of know, even as you're doing it, I shouldn't be doing this. You kind of get that feeling that someone else should be doing this. This is not a good use of my time.
No, I've had VAT returns hanging over my head for the last 2 weeks that I need to get sorted. And I know I could just send them into the accountants and they'll do it, but I like going through every single receipt and see what's going out, what's coming in. So I know things, but it takes a few hours work. But then I fill up my calendar constantly, so then I'm not allowing that flexibility to take on the unexpected, or to be dealing with these very uninspiring activities that need to be done.
Yeah.
But everyone thinks that they're doing a great job. But it's when you talk about the low impact thing, like the admin stuff, what is the return that one is getting on that activity they're doing, especially if they think it's a low impact activity?
Yeah.
Like, what are they actually getting back? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves.
I think so. I think that's a big part of this is self-reflection. A lot of the work I do with my clients is asking the questions basically and giving them the space to think about that. Because if we really took a step back and thought, I think we all know the answers, and I really believe everyone knows the answers. It's not up for me or anyone else to tell you the answers. It's up for you to think about them.
Yeah.
Because that's the power of our mind, of our mindset. Napoleon Hill, who's probably known for writing one of the most famous books on personal development, Think and Grow Rich. He called it Think and Grow Rich. He didn't say work and grow rich. He said think and grow rich. And I think he called it that for a reason. So we need to take a step back and actually think about what we're doing and actually pay attention to what we're paying attention to.
Yeah.
If you like, so to speak.
Because you were saying that like an employee, you know, they'll come in and they'll give their time for money in return. What does a leader do? You know, because they shouldn't be given their time for money in return as such. It needs to be a different strategy.
Well, a lot of leaders are still in that mode, if you like, because they're spending that time on lower impact or even mid-impact stuff, which is more maybe management level, like supervising, monitoring performance, things like that. That's kind of mid-impact. And it's very, like, when I'm saying low, mid, and high impact, it's not that these things aren't important. They're very important. It's just they're not the best use of your time, of your focus. So the leader should be spending their time as much as they can in the high impact zone. And that becomes a journey really, because your calendar might be full of the lower or mid stuff at the moment.
Yeah.
So to get to high impact, like if I go in and tell somebody you should be doing X, Y, and Z, and they'll agree, but it's like, how do I actually get time to do that? Because it's about breaking a cycle. And one of the things that I sent in that video, Gary, was the work mode loop. So there's two loops, and basically if your focus is on that low impact, well then the low impact work creates a very low return on your investment. Remember we said that leadership is about investing your attention and your energy into things to get an impact. So that's a low return on impact or low return on investment. When you have a low return on your investment, you don't have an abundance of resources to go and hire more people or outsource things or free your time.
Yeah.
So this is starting to come back to you now. So the work that you did, the lower value stuff, is going to come back to you the next time round, because it doesn't go away.
True.
A lot of stuff, it's very short term.
Yeah.
So it keeps coming back to you in a loop. But every time it comes back, there's one extra thing to do. So every time it comes back, you're a little bit more busier and busier and busier. And I think I see that with a lot of business owners. They're busier now 10 years into the business than they were when they started, because all this stuff has built up and they haven't been able to kind of let go of it, delegate it, remove it. Some of it is kind of fear-based or out of concern for, well, if I don't do it, it won't be done right. Or if I don't do it, I'll end up having to do it, again in the future if somebody else does it wrong. So there's lots of limitations that way in our mindset that we need to overcome. And that's where I help leaders, is actually seeing where those limitations are and making it very clear that actually, this is something that I need to stop doing.
So should a leader only be doing a couple of hours a week in the business and then it's 30 plus hours on the business as such?
It's a good question. I think it comes back to that word vision you spoke about. Like, what is your vision for where you want to work? I'm very big on getting alignment. So if your vision is that you want to have time to do the high impact stuff, so let's talk about that for a moment. It's a lot of it's development work, your own self-development, developing the business, developing the team, developing new products or services, driving innovation, developing partnerships outside your business. It's a lot of development work, and it's very long-term work.
Yes.
It's important. Everyone will agree it's important, but because it's not urgent, it's when you look at the calendar, it's not on the calendar. It'll be on it next week, but it's not on this week.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, every week it gets pushed out a week. So a lot of it doesn't get done. So I think having a vision for the business, like if you're running €1 million business and you want to go to 10 million, you kind of have to have a vision. What does the business look like at 10 million? It's not just going to happen by accident. Like, how many people are working here? What's the organizational structure look like? And where do I fit in? What's my role in this? And I think defining your roles and responsibilities, because as business owners, we'd do up a job description and give a role and responsibility to everyone else. And sometimes that's not even clear.
Yeah.
But we don't have any for ourselves.
Yeah,
So
true.
we end up doing everything. We wear all these different hats and we don't let go of them. So I think having a vision for your role as to where you want to be. And a lot of the clients I work with, if you ask them, they'd say maybe 20% of their time in the business, which might be a little bit of firefighting, a bit of management or monitoring performance. And then the rest of their time, they would love to have it for developing new products or driving innovation or mentoring people in their team, going out to find and hiring the best people they can,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
So like I think there's kind of like an 80-20 rule, and that's kind of like the 5 work modes of leadership that I've kind of outlined, is starting basically at the bottom, where probably over 80-90% of your time is kind of in the business, in the weeds, in the grind. And then the aspirational side at the top of that kind of pyramid is that we are maybe only 20% of our time or less is actually in the business, and we have 80% of our time to look at future opportunities. And you're really future proofing the business in that stage, and maybe not even your own business. Maybe you're future proofing, things in the industry. Maybe you're becoming a thought leader in your industry at that stage. But you can't do any of that unless you have time freedom to do that. So
exactly, like how do you scale when you're in the weeds, really?
Yeah. So it all comes back to, that's why that work loop is so powerful, because it all starts with your attention. That's like the center of it. Like, so where the survival loop overlaps, which is stuck in the low impact stuff, and all these lower value tasks keep coming back to you. That's like the survival cycle. Well, over on the other side of that is a thriving cycle, which is where you invest your time into something that's high impact. And then because you're investing some time and energy into that, that's actually giving you a good return on your investment. So a simple one might be a business owner who is caught up, like I work with a lot of guys in maybe like construction, that kind of related industry. So they might be involved in project delivery or getting a project completed. And if they even take an hour or two a week, if they can break free into that kind of high impact zone and go and meet maybe a past client that they had for a previous project, a year ago, that they haven't reached out to yet. And, get some, if they use that time even getting the conversations going, and this has happened with my clients this spring, they've already got more work lined up to grow the business. And now they're more confident about hiring somebody else in. And that's exactly what happened. So one of the reasons that this particular individual I'm thinking of didn't want to hire anyone, because they were afraid they mightn't have the work. But they didn't see the fact, I suppose they were playing not to lose, maybe, versus playing to win.
Yeah.
And playing not to lose meant, I'll play it safe. I won't hire. Well, let's just slow this thing down and let it grow. But actually, that was doing the opposite to what that person wanted to. That was actually increasing the risk in the future of the business not, performing well. Whereas playing to win was actually a better strategy for future-proofing the business.
Yeah, definitely. It reminds me of the first business I set up as well, which was a film production company in 2001. And the issue we always had, and there's 3 of us at the time in the company running it, was that you put all your energy and time into getting a production, into development, off the ground, into production, getting it completed and getting it out there. But then when it was out there, we didn't have anything lined up for the next round. So it took another couple of years to kind of get something going again. It was very stagnant. And I can see even with businesses nowadays, and it's much more difficult as a sole trader, but businesses do have this famine feast period where they're really busy for a while and then really quiet. And because they're really busy, they're not actually getting stuff lined up. So that as a result, a quiet period does come around the corner.
It becomes inconsistent.
Yeah. And then during that quiet period, they're getting busy again, but then they're busy that they're stuck in the weeds, being busy, that they end up having another quiet period again. Obviously, it's much harder, if you're working on your own for yourself. But definitely, I suppose if people can visualize that as you become a leader and your team grows, you're nearly kind of growing outside of that circle to a degree, to be focusing more on the overall running of things and the growth of it, rather than still stuck in the circle doing the normal day-to-day tasks you started out doing when you started up your business on day one.
Like one of the questions that I kind of ask, initially when I meet someone, if we're looking at whether we work together or not, is like, how do you see yourself in the business? Like, would you say you're the main problem solver? Would you say you're the fixer if things go wrong? And oftentimes it's an overwhelming yes, I am. And that in itself tells a story. Because if anything goes wrong, and we all know running a business, it's constantly problem solving.
Yeah.
But if you're the main person doing it, you actually end up solving problems for everyone on your team when they should be solving it for themselves. Because we're paying them to do work, but also to think and to solve problems. And maybe we don't give them the opportunity to do that by doing things for them.
There was a great line you had that I was reading, which was, it's about building culture where time is used wisely by the team. You know, that it's not about being busy all the time, but it's about using their time wisely. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I suppose, you know, even in this modern age, we have people working from home. And some people working from home will say, oh, my boss is grand.
Yeah.
As long as I get the work done, they're happy. So, you know, if you can get your work done in 4 hours that day, you're probably off for the rest of the day, really, you know, that sort of way. So it's about, but that seems alien to somebody who's brought up with a very hard work ethic, because if you get all your work done in 4 hours, well, then you have another 4 hours or 5 hours to get more work done. That's the comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's funny, like getting outside the comfort zone for someone who's brought up with like a good strong work ethic is actually not working.
You see, this is interesting as well, what you're saying, because speaking to other business people, there is this scenario where they might have the hybrid and there might be people who just work in the office. And what they notice is, you know, those who work from home, you know, they might get a job done in 4 hours. And after that 4 hours, it's like, that's it, box ticked, and they walk away from the desk. Whereas those, because they're in the office, they might have the same job done in 4 hours, but they still know that they're kind of on for another 4 hours. They actually start getting creative. They start testing out, you know, different products they might have, or getting in touch with a client. You know, there's that little bit of, sure, while I'm here, I might as well do something.
Yeah.
And have you come across that kind of clash that's happening now, where people are really seeing the changes that's happening from staff who just work at home and staff who work in the office in terms of the productivity level? Because in the United States now, people are being told to return to the workplace.
Yeah, and we had Amazon here as well. Yeah. Most of my clients are probably in industries that are kind of a bit more hands-on, so they have to be there. So it's not something that I'm probably bearing witness to a lot. But I know definitely some of them had, you know, office staff that maybe were working partly from home, and there was issues obviously. But I think a lot of it comes back to what we talked about the vision and the alignment, that if people are on board with something and they know it's more than a job. And I think we were just talking before this, you know, I suppose the greatest need for people is to feel important. That, you know, if they're not feeling that, then, you know, we use that term, we're only a number.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the opposite. So if people feel like they're in a business but they're only a number and they're working from home, like, what's their attitude going to be like?
Yeah.
But if they feel like they're actually in a really important role and they feel that responsibility and they know it's there, they're more likely to be productive.
Yeah, like there's a great line you told me about when JFK visited NASA.
Yeah.
And he bumped into a janitor in there.
Yeah.
And he asked the janitor, "What are you doing?" or something. And what line did he give back?
Yeah, so he asked the janitor, basically what was he doing? And he says, I'm helping putting a man on the moon. And so that's kind of the mentality that I use to kind of explain kind of alignment through an organization.
Yeah, that everyone knows, no matter what they're doing, they know what the great vision is.
Yeah. And I think, in fairness, I think love him or hate him, I think Michael O'Leary has a little bit of that culture in Ryanair as well, that they all know they have something similar about getting, it's some message around like getting planes turned around quickly or something like that.
Yeah.
But everyone is on the same page with that. And it's like one message that everyone can align with.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful when it comes to external alignment. And that's when you're talking about the work modes and you shifting from low impact to high impact, you first have to work on the internal alignment with yourself to see, okay, I want to build a vision for my business. This is what I want it to look like. At the moment, it's not going to move. I'm not going to move the needle doing what I'm doing. So I need to break away from that. And then once you get like 5-10 hours, if you want to measure it in hours, once you get like 5 hours a week to 10 hours a week back, you're now doing high impact work with that time. And now the next plateau is your team around you.
Mm.
And it's the people closest to you. It's the senior leadership team first. They need to get that alignment. They need to change how they're working. They need to change how they're using their time. And then as you're kind of progressing up through the work modes and becoming somebody who's detached from the day-to-day of the business, you need more and more people in your business to start thinking like you.
Yeah.
To run it effectively. So the first, if you want to call it, the first kind of 10 hours is all about like me getting my crap together, if you like, and getting clear on that. So there's a few different strategies in terms of that. Like one is even booking 1 hour a day. That's kind of a sacred hour to do that work.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, a lot of business owners I work with at the start, they might have a rough idea of how their week looks. They don't sit down for even 30 minutes on a Friday evening and look at, say, okay, this is how next week's going to look. So it's not intentional maybe, and it's a bit more reactive. So that when you're in that low impact zone, it's a very reactive zone, because you're just expecting, you're not going to book things in when you feel like you're going to get 20 calls that day.
Yeah.
It's going to put you off. But if you can just even start with like a 1 hour block and just protect that hour every day, well, that's 5 hours a week.
Yeah, like I have friends who would get up, I'm not an early bird now, but they get up maybe at 5:30, 6 in the morning, and they'd write out, we call it the morning rituals. So they write out, what they're grateful for, what went well for them yesterday, what didn't go well, what they could improve on or something, and kind of what are maybe the 3 key priorities of today. And then at the end of the week, others would do a thing called Win the Week, where they write about the big wins that they had. But it's this awareness of gratitude, but also knowing clearly when you start your day, what are the key goals you want to achieve this day that'll have impact, rather than getting up in the morning, checking your phone, there's an email has come in, someone's looking for this or wants a response to that, and you're automatically in firefighting mode.
Yeah. Have you ever read any of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work? Yeah, he's a good book called Supernatural, or Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And but he talks about that we're in, the energy we're in. This is going a little bit deeper into more energy. So when I talk about time, the reason I talk about time is because time is a manifestation of your mindset. Because how you use your time is basically your mindset. It's where your mind is drawn to. And your mindset is like 95% automatic. So everything that's happened to you in your past is like just repeating itself. So this is why we're in loops and cycles and patterns and ruts, if you like, in different areas of our lives. So like you might be in a rut with your health, but the business could be going great. So there's different areas that could feel a little bit more like that. But he says like that energy we're in. So let's say we don't feel, confident with finances in our business. That's an energy. So like you have a negative energy, a draining energy. You might avoid doing VAT returns. I'm not saying you do, Gary, but I'm just saying you might avoid that, or you might avoid, the thoughts of chasing up invoices, just like, oh my God, is this the last thing ever I want to do? So there's just an energy around the finances. But he says we get addicted to that energy. We're addicted to it.
Yeah.
And so we have to actually, if we want to break that, so if we want to change how we're using our time, we basically have to like break that habit of being ourselves. We basically have to create something new. And that has to be intentional from within.
Okay.
And so it starts with the vision of having a vision of what you want it to look like, a vision then for how you use your time, because that's a great way for how you need to see yourself. Because there's one kind of mindset concept called the self-image. It's by a guy called Maxwell Maltz, who was a cosmetic surgeon. And he noticed that when he brought people in to do surgery on them, he could have 2 people with the exact same maybe scar on their cheek or whatever he'd get rid of. And one person would walk out feeling like a new person, like a new man, like a new woman. And one person who, let's say they were both at the start, they were both like self-conscious and low self-esteem and stuff. And one person would flip, but the other person wouldn't. And he was like, what's going on here? I'm doing the same operation. It looks the exact same. So he reckoned that, he kind of surmised that people had 2 images, like one outer image, but also this inner image. And for some people, the outer image, when they got a face lift, if you like, or whatever it was, it changed how they seen themselves inside as well.
Okay.
So they just automatically increased their confidence.
Yeah.
But other people, it didn't have that effect. So they were still like low self-esteem. So this self-image is basically how we see ourselves. And it comes from like the stories that we tell ourselves, our inner narrative, things like that.
Yeah.
And so I basically go in to talk to leaders about this and coach leaders about this. Is like, what stories are we telling ourselves about work, about productivity, about struggle? We feel like that it has to be, if it's not hard work, it's not good work.
Yeah.
If it's not hard work, it's not like it, or it's noble to do hard work on its own, even if it has no impact. Like I could just pick stones all day. And I've done that as a child on a farm. I've picked stones all day.
But I suppose even, genetically we've come from just working the land, working on work was always the thing, I mean, if you saw someone up at the cave smoking a pipe, just thinking, lounging about, you'd be fit to kill them,
Yeah.
The tigers are coming. It's definitely a big struggle. Like I remember, again, this was pre-COVID. I was at my parents' house, and Mom was, "Oh, where were you today?" And I said, "Oh, I was working from home." And she was like, So we were minding your kids, and I said, no, I was working, but that wasn't even thought of work if you weren't physically in an office.
Yeah.
And now, if you're not physically doing 8 hours at a desk, type, or having loads of Zoom meetings or meeting people, that's not seen. You sitting on a beach with a notepad and pen for 8 hours isn't seen as work. That's like, that lad is nothing for doing. Everyone else at the office is working hard.
Yeah. And there's a lot of guilt around that then.
Absolutely, yeah. Like even yesterday, I contacted one of the team just saying, look, I was going to finish what I was doing from home because I had back-to-back meetings and phone calls and stuff like that. But I was letting that person know that I wasn't slacking because I was feeling guilty in case they thought, you weren't here. Where's your man gone? Like, I know it's a sunny day. Is he just off swimming in the sea? A huge guilt comes from it. But then when things are starting to slow down and you can see the growth isn't there, huge guilt comes from that as well, because you're looking around at the team and you're like, I haven't kind of kept the show on the road. I've taken my eye off the ball. I've been distracted by the weeds as such. And that's what I think as well about business. At times, it doesn't matter how many you have in a team. There are moments where it can feel very lonely, and it's important for people to have these conversations and discussions and know that it's okay to do these things. And, the expectation for growth isn't you sitting at a desk 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's hard to break away from the day-to-day sometimes because you feel not part of the action.
Yeah.
Like there's like the reason you started the business was you love film production.
Yeah.
If you have to go and work on like maybe building some partnership outside of the business, maybe that's not your thing, or maybe it is. Like usually building partnerships and relationships usually is a good thing for most people. But just as an example, some of the higher level stuff you could do might not be the thing that you love doing.
Yeah.
Like one of the guys I worked with he actually loved going out on site and being with the lads and talking to them, and he felt like, actually no, I need to be in the office more and like doing the future work, planning for the long term and that sort of that kind of thing. So there was like a breakaway from that, but there's also a feeling of not, the way that greatest need is to feel important. As a leader of the business, you mentioned the isolation. Sometimes when you break away from that weeds, you actually could feel that you're not important in the business anymore. And that's something that you have to overcome. But I think you overcome that kind of guilt or that shame feeling by having conviction in what the high impact stuff is.
Yeah.
And if you know how important it is, like actually if I'm working on this strategic partnership or this new product I'm launching, if I work on this, I'm going to end up, everyone here is going to have a much more secure job.
Yeah.
Everyone here is going to have, we're actually going to grow the team. We'll probably end up having it in a way that there's more benefits for employees that are here.
Yeah.
So if you can sell that to yourself, I use that word sell because it is a sale.
Yeah, it's true.
A sale is a transfer of belief. So basically you want to believe a new idea. Well, then you have a higher purpose for doing the higher impact work. And you do need that, because the low stuff, trying to break free from that, there can be a lot of like guilt or other negative fear, other negative emotions that will actually hold you back from that. So it's about reframing all those things, like reframing that. I love that, like redefining what words are. Like, what is work? You know, what is impact? What is productivity? What is leadership? What is business? Like, when is the last time business owners even asked themselves that questions? Yet they're in it every day doing it.
Yeah, true.
So by redefining it, they can like reset boundaries for themselves. And when you reset boundaries, basically you can protect your time because you know what's clear now. You're clear. You've clarity. So all this is coming kind of from within, and then it's been expressed without. The alignment, you mentioned about like having the structure on kind of a coaching system. So it's very much around alignment. So it's being clear on like, I have kind of like the inner alignment is like spirit, self, and strategy. And spirit is like the energy, the vision, the purpose. Self is your mindset, your identity, how you see yourself. And then the strategy is the action, the execution. And a lot of time we'll, you know, if you're talking about business, it's a lot of it's around the strategy, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. And a lot of times, like, we know the answers, but we know what we should be doing. So it's an inside job to actually change how we see ourselves. So we actually naturally want to do that.
Yeah.
And so when you get the alignment between those three, now you're in a position of creation and power and freedom. And you have to persist in that alignment and just keep looking for it. And it's a refinement process.
Okay.
And it's a process of growth as well. So the more aware you become, you might say, actually, I'd love to bring this element into my business. So now you've added something to it, the more aware. So your awareness expands everything. And then your mindset needs to kind of match that, to kind of fill that expansion, if you like, or match that expansion. And hopefully I'm not gone too abstract.
No, it's good. But like, there's companies then that you've worked with whose turnover, because you work with companies in Ireland, the UK, and some of them, their turnover has been almost €500 million. And like, what are they doing wrong? Because on paper, it looks like they're doing amazing.
It's the same thing, just at scale. So it's, instead of maybe one leader, maybe there's 20 leaders in that kind of organization, if you like. And so it's about getting that alignment between the 20. So in terms of like, what are they doing wrong? Well, they're all working hard, all very loyal, super committed. They're good fun. Probably the thing that they weren't looking at is like what their role was in the organization. You know, what their role was and what the role of the team was. So some of the things that they were going off to do on their own bat as a group afterwards was like, we need to define the roles and responsibilities of everyone. So now we have boundaries. So now we're clear on what people should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, what's high impact, what's low impact. Because now we can have that. And then also, you know, there was maybe the communication channels, maybe more structure in that. There almost was a lack of that. And because there was a lack of it, there was over communicating.
Yeah.
They overcompensated instead of having those clear communication channels. So there was like emails, people part of email threads that they didn't need to be part of. Yet there was FOMO if they missed it, checking the phones in the evening time and all that stuff, which is okay if you have to do it. But if it's like every evening, you know, one guy kind of jokingly said, but also it was kind of serious at the same time. Like if he said, if I was playing with my kids in the evening and the phone beeped, I'd nearly throw one of the kids aside to look at the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of people would resonate with that.
Yeah.
So it's just about seeing that, look, well, you know, and as he said, you know, his wife has often said to him, what are you going to do about it this hour of the evening anyway?
Yeah, true.
And, you know, most things in business are not life and death.
Yeah.
And I think we, as business owners, we think they are.
We are, because we're in a bubble. It's the only thing we know or think about all the time.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that there's a whole world operating outside of that bubble.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. So getting some of the things that they were going to do as a bigger organization was block off that 1 hour a day to work on things. Having office hours, so where the door is closed, because it's very an open door policy and they encourage that. But, you know, at the same time, if they're sitting on a Zoom meeting for 90 minutes, which they could be, nobody comes in to interrupt them.
Yeah.
But they didn't see, so they'd have the door closed for that, but they didn't see if they had to work on something themselves, that they didn't have the permission or the right to close the door then.
Okay.
And I think giving themselves the permission that it's okay, if I'm working on something that's higher level, to actually close the door for an hour.
Yeah.
And this is all about just making first steps. Just do it for 1 hour.
How did you get into this?
How did I get into this? I think I just fell down a rabbit hole and kept going, Gary. Probably through personal development myself. Growing up with a strong work ethic, I've worked all through my 20s. We're speaking there yesterday. I told you I was in Australia for a while straight out of college when I was 21, 22. I was working in the mines.
Making big money,
making like six figures at 22, like thinking I'd made it. But that kind of finished up, and then moved back to Ireland, and I was like slammed back into the middle of recession times, really. It was, it was 2014, 15, so things were still slow. Salaries were well below what I was getting in Australia. So I always had that drive to, there's something more to life than working just a 9 to 5. There's something more than just a 9 to 5. And it's funny how I look at time now, and looking at it from an infinite point of view, and where your attention goes, and kind of breaking free from time. So it's almost like there was something underlying there about the 9 to 5 that was, I'm looking at it now more than what I was looking at it then, if you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, starting out, invested in my own personal growth. I got to a stage where...
Is that like reading books?
I was reading books and consuming lots of content on YouTube, but nothing was changing. Nothing really changed. In fact, I probably got better at making things worse.
Okay.
And that's the big thing about personal growth, that if you don't do it for yourself, you could make things worse.
Yeah.
Personal growth has to be for you. So I'm not going to say it's selfish. You could call it selfish, but there's more of a self-prioritization. So prioritizing you first, your vision. Because if you don't, this is a very simple question. If you don't prioritize your vision, what happens?
You probably end up just prioritizing someone else's, I'd say.
Somebody else prioritizes your calendar.
Yeah.
That's literally what happens. So you put yourself second to everything. And I put myself second all my life to work. I was hard work came first, get the work done. Doesn't matter what work it was, as long as you were working hard, right?
The busy fool, yeah.
Yeah. So I how did that manifest for me? In relationships. I was in a relationship I should never have been in, but I felt like it was a weakness if I gave up.
Yeah.
So I put in the work. I ended up at kind of my own rock bottom through that. And I was driving in the car one day, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. And I reached out to a psychotherapist, and that somebody gave me a number of. And I had a quick call with them and a couple of sessions with them, and I could completely see, a different perspective. So I think getting that outside perspective is really important as a business owner. If you don't have somebody else that you can talk to, you need to get somebody, because you said it can be isolating. A lot of your team could be the best in the world, but at the end of the day, they want to keep you happy. And sometimes they'll just say yes when they should say something else.
Yeah.
But they're looking after their own role. They're maybe afraid of how you react, blah, blah, blah. So you need somebody who can just be honest with you. So I found somebody with that. And then as soon as I kind of got myself out, I made a decision to leave that relationship. But I think that day also I made a decision to put myself first, to prioritize what I wanted, not what I thought I should have or what society led me to believe I should have, because there's a lot of that going on.
Of course.
What do you actually want? And then I invested like €7,000 into a coach, basically, who worked for the Proctor Gallagher Institute, which is all around Bob Proctor's business, if anyone knows him, all around mindset. And that would have been alien to me to invest that money into myself. I probably wouldn't have hardly spent it on a car at the time.
But it's funny though, we'd spend it on a banger of a car, but we wouldn't invest it in our own growth that won't depreciate, it'll only increase.
It's only ever appreciated. Every penny I've put into myself has returned back. We talked about return on investment and high impact work. I think self-development is number one on the list, because everything flows through you as the leader.
Yeah.
So if you're limiting it, you're the biggest limiter, you're the biggest bottleneck.
Yeah.
So you need to be at least at a level that as you're executing the strategy, as you're coming up with the vision, as you're making decisions, that you're not the bottleneck. So I think self-development is the first step in a lot of that. So I kind of just kept working on myself, and then I seen the benefits of it in terms of the changes that have happened in my life, in terms of my living conditions, in terms of my relationships, in terms of income, everything. So I said I wanted to teach it to others. And
but that's self-development. Now you have your own house, you're getting married.
Get married in October.
Year.
Yeah.
You have your own business, which is doing really well. You're an all-star business award winner as well. So things are really going in the right direction because you've put the work into the foundation of your business being you.
100%, yeah, 100%. And like it's been, yeah, I think I don't know if it's luck or not. You know, things happen to you in life. I don't know if it's luck or if it's whatever. But just coming across like even the Bob Proctor material, like that really changed my life. And then when I invested in myself, as I said, I was investing in I started looking at all the material and applying it, but I was applying it to make something else happen that I didn't want. So that's why I say I got better at making things worse.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, so you have to apply it to what you want. That's the most important thing. But yeah, things are moving in the right direction. It's all from inner clarity, inner awareness, alignment. Like,
but how do you get inner clarity?
I always look at my results first. So if anyone ever looks up like the wheel of life, you'll see like 8 different categories of your life. And I always like do a self-assessment on that. There's like career and business.
So you're scoring
finances,
yourself in different areas at a time. Yeah.
Career and business, finances, health, rest and recreation, family, personal life, personal relationship, physical environment. There's different topics on it. And just self-assess. Like where do you feel like things are a 10 or a 9 or a 10? And where are things like a 3 and a 4? And then you just look at the areas that are 3 and 4. So I've actually developed kind of a similar wheel for business owners to look at different areas of their life. But you can just break them up into the different departments if you want. I would think of even if you're a sole trader, you have different departments in your business, even though you're the one that's head of the business.
Yeah.
But you just think of those like 7 or 8 different areas that are important to your business and just give them a self-assessment. Where are they at? Wherever you feel it's low, that's the area you need to work on.
Okay.
If you feel like your products are really good, but that the sales is weak, well then let's focus on the sales strategy. Like where are we going wrong on this? Like, and actually looking at it from start to finish, and then you get from looking at it, then you get that clarity.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, this is where I'm going wrong. Maybe I reach out to a sales coach or a sales expert.
Yeah.
Do a sales course or whatever it is. And I like sales, that's why I talk about sales. But then you learn about that, and so you get clarity around that. And with clarity, then you get a better strategy. And with a better strategy, then if everything is energy, well, what a strategy is like a physical structure that allows that energy to flow. And if your strategy is bad, it means the energy is getting blocked, it's getting choked. It has lots of corners to go around, it has to go up and down, when it could just go pure and straight. And I suppose that's like a really good strategy is when like you do marketing. So like you have the right market, the right audience, the right media, you match the 3 of them together.
Yeah.
And all the energy that you put into it is paying off massively.
Yeah.
But if you get one of those things wrong, like the media, the marketing, or the
audience,
the message or whatever, it's you miss out.
Yeah.
So that alignment is so important internally to get for you. So your success to me is having freedom. That's how I judge it, and different areas of my life. And so for me to have freedom, I have to be who I want to be. Like me being who I want to be is success to me.
Yeah.
So that's what inner alignment really is. So if I can get that, and I'm living true to myself, through my business, and expressing all of that as much as I can through my business, and helping my team do that as well, well then we're all on the same page. We're all going in the one direction. We're all bringing as much as we can to the party, and we're getting rewarded for that.
Brilliant. Before we finish up, I just want to talk about, there's a little exercise that you have, and just for people to know as well, in the description we have a link where people can do their own audit that John has done up for you. So I think that'll be very, very beneficial. So just check the description in the podcast episode. But we're going to look at the 10 coins with the 3 buckets. So explain this exercise.
This is very simple. So you've heard me talk about low impact and what that kind of tasks are, and what the high impact and the mid impact are. So the low impact, the low impact is like the firefighting, the weeds, the admin, checking invoices, checking inventory, that kind of work. The mid impact is like management, supervising, monitoring performance, that level of work. So it's more management level. The high impact is more about development, developing yourself, your self-development, developing the team, mentoring the team, developing partnerships, driving innovation. So you can kind of see there's 3 kind of clear levels, if you like.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's the front line, there's the management, and then there's the high level
Yeah.
stuff, if you like, in your head.
So I think everyone now, before they do anything next, get your diary, get your calendar, and look back on the last week.
Yeah.
So you're honest and transparent with this
Yeah.
next part.
And if there's nothing in there for an hour, you can guarantee it's not in the high impact.
Yeah.
It's usually, if there's a blank in your calendar, it usually was filled up with sending emails or, you know, or whatever.
100%.
So yeah, do that. Look back and just have a self-assessment. So if your week was made up of 10 tokens, where are you currently spending them between the low, the mid, and the high? And that's it. Because even that in itself, that kind of comes back from the philosophy that not all work is created equal. I think that's like the first step, even just being aware of that.
Yeah. But you're saying that most people, there's a good chunk of coins that go in low impact, a few in mid impact, and maybe one really in the high impact.
Look,
and that's when it is the alarm bells ringing, saying, look, you're holding yourself back so much as a leader in your business. Yeah,
well, like I'm talking to people who maybe say, like, time management. I think I could be wrong on this. I think it was Harvard did a study, but it said 49% of kind of business owners and leaders, 49% time management was their biggest challenge.
Yeah, 100%.
So, you know, this comes back to these 3 buckets. So if a leader is spending like even 3 or 4, like sometimes it's up as high as 7 or 8, but 3 or 4 tokens in that low impact, 3 or 4 in the mid, and maybe 1 or 2 in the high. Like, that's still a lot of, if you talk about efficiency, that's not efficiency as a leader. But you have to move on from where you are. So like the first steps is looking at getting that assessment, seeing where you're at, and then say, okay, it's no wonder why I'm not making more sales, or I don't have more clients, or I'm not attracting the right people. Sure, I don't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's obvious now. It's clear why things are the way they are. And then it's like, okay, well, what can I do about it to actually free up some time from the low value? So very simply, it's like, look at your emails or your meetings lined up for the next couple of weeks. What is one meeting or call that you actually don't have to be there for? Just one. That could free up an hour. What is one thing that you do that you could eliminate, whether it's like delegated or it's maybe it's not even important, you can just eliminate it.
Yeah.
What is something you can say no to? Just one thing you can say no to. I love the power of one. So if you like one thing you can say no to, one thing you can eliminate, one thing you can, one meeting you don't attend, and just that 1 hour block. What about if I put a 1 hour block in my day and put it at the start of the day? Because if you put it 4 to 5 o'clock, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, block off 9 to 10 in the morning, or 10 to 11.
Yeah.
And schedule it. But
avoid the emails, turn off the phone.
Yeah, but have a task to do in that hour. Don't just like schedule it in.
Yeah.
Because then you're not clear on what you should be doing. So have a high level task, and maybe there's a call you've been meaning to do with a client, or that could form a strategic partnership down the line. Maybe there's something, maybe you need to talk to someone on HR about hiring somebody. You know, that's high level. Or maybe you need to meet up with somebody to mentor them for an hour. Like, that's all high level stuff, but put that high level stuff in there, and that's what creates an impact. That's what creates the highest impact in your business.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse, and I've had it many times where you've come home and it's like, oh God, it's such a busy day, but I felt I got nothing done.
Oh man, how many days have I had that? Yeah. When you look at those days, like even Gary, like, how do you assess them? Because you said, like, it looks like you've got lots done, but you actually feel like, in terms of moving the needle,
100%. Yeah. What did it actually achieve for the bigger picture, the bigger goal? Yeah.
Yeah. We have to remember, as leaders, if we're not working on the goal, there's nobody else is.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is. I see like the low and the mid impact as like delivery and distributing of the service or products that you do. But the high level is creating it. It's creating the people around it. It's attracting, whether they're clients or people or new team members, new employees. You're attracting the right people. You're creating the actual physical value in the product or the service that you do. So you are the creator up at that end. And you're creating from within, because you're imagining how the team should look. You're imagining that you want, more clients, and how many more clients you want. You're imagining what this new product or service could look like, especially with AI now. There's so much new things that we could be doing.
Yeah.
You're envisioning all how that could look. So you're starting to create it, and everything has to be created first in the imagination before it's actually created in reality.
True. Yeah.
So you're giving that space, and if you're not giving it that space, nobody else in your business is.
Brilliant. John, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Garry.
Joining me today. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I knew I'd get so much value from it. Hopefully the listeners have as well. I think it's the sort of episode that you can listen back on quite a few times because you'll be getting more and more from it, because there's so much information there that you have shared with us today. So
super. Well, I'm glad I could help, and hopefully your listeners see it that way too.
Well, continued success with your business. And as I said, people can check out the link in the description where they can do their own audit. John Douglas, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Garry.